Hey guys, it's Will here and welcome to the final battle of Tale of Four Gamers. In this game, my Dark Eldar taking on Mike's Tyranids. We're up to 1750 points now, so we've got totally full-size armies. Apologies that you're only getting me on the pre and post game for this. Originally shot pre and post games with Mike, but the sound quality went wrong and essentially you couldn't hear a thing. So yeah, I've had to tag these bits on, but what I can tell you now is it's a good game and one that you definitely want to stay tuned for. So without further ado, let's take a look at the lists. And so here it is, my final 1750 Dark Eldar list for this edition, and my final list for the Tale of Four Gamers. So I've got my Archon down here. She's got the Shadowfield and the Agonizer, as she always should, and she'll be riding with the Incubi. I've got 8 in there with the Clavex, and they've got themselves a Raider, just standard disintegrator cannon, no other upgrades. Then I have 4 squads of Cabalite Warriors, Shredder in each one, and each one will be riding in my Venoms. And it's this Venom here that is my new addition this month, so that's the first of my new models. Backing them up, I've got 2 Razor Wing Jet Fighters, the same 2 from last time, but hopefully they'll actually do something this time around. Then my second new unit, my Cabalite Trueborn. All of them are packing blasters, so there's, 4 of them are packing blasters, so it's a Blasterborn squad in another Venom. Then I've got my Ravager, triple Bright Lance, my Scourges with the Heat Lances, and then finally my last new addition, the Void Raven Bomber. That's upgraded with the Shatterfield missiles, so that is coming in at 200 points, but hopefully going to do some serious damage to these Tyranids and make it worth those points. The keen-eyed among you will notice I've dropped my Talos this month. I had to drop him to fit everything else I wanted in, but there we go, 1750 points of Dark Eldar. And here's Mike's Tyranid army. Looks a little bit compact for a Tyranid army at 1750, but there is a lot of monster in here. So starting up at the back, we've got 1 and 2 Flying Hive Tyrants. Pretty much the best thing in the Tyranid Codex right now. So yep, definitely a good choice there. 30 Gaunts that we've seen before, and another 20. So yep, army is growing in terms of hordiness. These 2 Carnifexes were there last time, but they've been joined by a 3rd Carnifex, and he's got the same 3 Venom Thrups he's used in the last couple of games to give everything a nice layer of shrouding. Then we got 3 Biovores. These have done some pretty good work for him in previous games. And the Tyranid Warriors, who've slightly switched up their loadout. We've got 3 Death Spitters and a Venom Cannon in there. Finally, we've got 3 Rippers with tunnelling, so they'll be coming up out of nowhere. And then Big Mama herself, the Tervagon. So there may only be 50 Termagants deploying, but we can expect to see more than that by the end of the game. So there we have it, 1750 points of Tyranids. And based on my performance against Tyranids in recent games, I'm scared because, yeah, Tyranids are mauling me at the moment, but hopefully the Dark Eldar will put in a bit of a better showing. So the mission tonight is Tactical Escalation. So we're starting off with just 1 objective marker each and gradually increasing. This gives us end-to-end deployment, which I think for once might actually work in my favour. We shall have to wait and see though, because the way the cover's gone out, he's very well defended. So I was able to deploy first. So what units were deploying have kind of spread out, trying to get me onto the markers that were in my deployment zone, covering my most valuable units, and ready to spring forward. Tyranids have deployed fairly centrally, with the Venom Thrups being the key. 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there. So everything is pretty much going to benefit from the cover of a Venom Thrup, meaning he's going to have army-wide shrouded for the first turn at least, unless I can deal with some of those Venom Thrups early on. Flyrants at the back ready to take off, and I've got a whole lot in reserves with my 3 Flyers and the Scourges. And he has just 1 unit in reserve. The little squad of Rippers will be tunnelling up at some point. Anyway, Mike, would you like to roll to seize the initiative? Nope, initiative is not seized. Here we go. Dark Eldar, turn 1. Right, so we started the Dark Eldar first turn with secure objective 2, which was nicely in my deployment zone there. So I just left one of my Venoms hanging back behind the main advance to grab it. Was still in range to pop off a couple of termagants though. Everything else pushed forward to optimum firing range and unleashed with a storm of splinter fire. This Venom started it off, killing one of the Venom Thrups, gaining me first blood, and leaving that flank a little more exposed in terms of cover. Unfortunately, nothing was in range of the Hive Tyrant, but I was able to kill a few more termagants and to put a couple of wounds onto the Tyranid warriors with the Disintegrator on the Raider. Over this flank, the Venoms didn't do quite so well. The one that could see his Venom Thrup failed to do any damage to it, and the other one managed to put a wound on the Tervagon, and a lucky shot from the Ravager also put a wound on the Tervagon despite his 2-up cover save from the Venom Thrup, etc. So not as many kills as I would have liked, but we got first blood and we got our objective marker. So yeah, Tyranids have got an uphill struggle right from the start. Here we go with Tyranid, turn 1. As the Tyranids surged forward, they had just one objective for this turn, which unfortunately was objective 4, right in my deployment zone, so they were going to struggle to do that, so they just focused on taking out my transports. So the Flyrant there targeted this Venom and wrecked it. As you can see, the whole Tyranid army just surged forward. This Flyrant went particularly far forward, and despite my Jink and my Night Shields, it was able to wreck my Raider. Luckily the squad inside are unharmed. No, actually one of them died. Correction, one guy died. Yep, so they, but they're not pinned. The explosion did catch the Venom but didn't do any damage. That Carnifex was just out of range, and the Tyranid warriors missed with their Venom cannon. In the psychic phase, he cast Onslaught onto these Carnifexes with the hope they could run into range and then shoot, but unfortunately the slow movement of the Gaunts in front of them, who only rolled a 2 for their run, tripped them up so they couldn't get close enough. The final shooting was the very nasty Biovores. Pie Plate came down onto, well, it was originally aimed here, scattered to here, and then the flip landed on the Cabalite unit that was there and completely wiped them out. 2 spore mines appeared in the process, but thankfully for me they can't hold objectives, and that 1 Incubite is just about towing in to contest that anyway. So that is, alas, no points for the Tyranids, but 2 vehicles taken down, including my Command Raider. So yeah, we've got some reserves to roll for now. Starting off with 2 Razor Wings. Nope, both failed to turn up. 1 unit of Scourges. Nope, they don't turn up. And 1 Void Raven. Hey, so I get the Void Raven. I was hoping for more, but I'll make do with what I've got. Here we go with Dark Eldar, turn 2. So failing to get all my reserves meant I didn't have enough to really do everything I wanted to achieve that turn. But I've got Big Game Hunter and Ascendancy, but with only the Void Raven, I didn't have the 2 Razor Wings I wanted to take on the Tyrants. So to grab Ascendancy, these guys hopped out the back of their Venom to grab that one, the Venom pushed up to that one, and they disembarked to get to that one, so at least that's Ascendancy. Pushed up these 2 Venoms, and the Void Raven came on the flank to try and sort of get into more of a standoff range rather than bombing run type of thing. And the Ravager carried on sort of trying to angle up the best shot and hiding in cover. Shooting, I decided that needed to kill another Venom Thrup, which this Raider duly did. Venom duly did, so that's another Venom Thrup down. And that left the Carnifex that was there somewhat exposed. It did take the fire from the Void Raven and 2 different Venoms, as well as the Trueborn, to bring it down though. He got a bit lucky with his saves, I got a bit unlucky with my wounds. the Void Raven fired his missiles at the Carnifex, hoping to scatter off and hit the Termagants, and so it did. Killed about 3 or 4 from there, that's 6 there. So made some inroads, although the Tervagon will probably respawn those next turn. And yeah, eventually got the Carnifex down, and then the close range fire from these guys was able to kill a few more Termagants, and this Venom only put a single wound on the Tyranid warriors. They got pretty lucky with their saves. Ravager went for the now exposed Tervagon, but unfortunately the one that did manage to hit and wound, one lance shot that hit and wound, was saved by what little cover he still has. So not great, but I did get me big game hunter point for that Carnifex. I decided not to focus on the Hive Tyrants because I didn't think I could bring them down in one turn to score big game hunter. I'll wait till I have more air support later to do that. But yeah, that gives me D3 plus 1 points that turn, so my D3 is 3, so that's another 3 points, putting me on 5-0 as we go into the second Tyranid turn, and we got 1 reserve unit to roll for. Hey, we have Rippers. Okay, 3 burrowing Rippers coming in, and 1 big horde of bugs coming my way. The second Tyranid turn was all about board control. He had both supremacy and ascendancy. Flyrants continued their surge forward, I think hoping to fly under the line of sight of my flyers to keep themselves somewhat alive. The rest of the army carried on pushing forward, came nice and close together, and the one surviving Venom Throp trying to cover as much as possible. Rippers attempted to turn up on Objective 4, but scattered over here instead. Shooting was pretty effective, actually. This Flyrant managed to take 2 hull points off this and stun it. If I hadn't jinked, that would have wrecked it, but yeah, only stunned and lose down 2 hull points. And this one over here wiped out something. Oh yes, a unit of Cabalites that were there, which got me off that objective. And the Dakafexes were able to wipe out the unit of Cabalites standing in the open there, getting me off that objective, meaning that he is holding 1, 2, 3 objectives to my one objective that I'm holding, so he is definitely up on points now. Fire from the Termagants and the Tervagon managed to take a hull point off this and blow off one of the splinter cannons, and the Biovores killed 3 of the surviving incubi. So a lot of casualties starting to pile up here, but we are doing okay. Psychic phase, he tried to cast the Horror at the squad that were later wiped out there, cast it but failed to do any damage, and this one got off Catalyst, so he has a 5-up invuln next turn. And he also went Dominion on the Tervagon, but failed. So, you need to roll to see what those objectives are worth. They're both worth D3. 1 point.
And
Supremacy, 2 points. So that's 3 points in total for the Tyranids now. To the Dark Eldar's 5, but they are quite clearly outnumbering us by a huge amount, and I only have 5 Cabalites left. The rest of my Cabalites have been slaughtered. Anyway, do my 2 Razor Wings turn up? 1 and 6, so I get 1 Razor Wing. And what about my Scourges? Yes, I've got my Scourges as well. Right, here we go. Time to fight back. Dark Eldar, turn 3. Okay, so the objective is starting to rack up now. I've got 2 to score in terms of grabbing locations, 2 and 5, and also overwhelming firepower, which in theory this army should be good at. So the first of my new arrivals, the Razor Wing, came on and opened up on the Hive Tyrant, but managed to only do a single wound. Both my Dark Lances missed. It seems to be a theme with these Razor Wings at the moment. They keep missing. I don't know what's going on. My other new arrival came in on the back lines. The Scourges got a pretty perfect deep strike and used their Heat Lances to almost finish off the Venom Throp, although it did eventually take some support fire from one of the Raiders to finish the job, one of the Venoms to do the job. But at least that's that Venom Throp done, which is the first of the points I need for overwhelming firepower. Then I focused the majority of my firepower, so these 2 Venoms, plus their crew, plus that, no, plus the, whatever that is, the Ravager, at the Tervigon. Finally managed to kill the Tervigon. It was towed into these woods, so it had a cover save, but eventually killed the thing, and the Synaptic Backlash caused huge casualties on the surrounding Termagant units, reducing this squad to a single one and just down to 3 over here. So to secure my final overwhelming firepower, the final Venom fired at this squad, killed all 3. I was then hoping to charge my Archon into there for another quick kill and to then consolidate into the woods, but unfortunately I failed my charge despite fleet, so they're kind of stuck out in the open now. But this Venom had shot forward to grab 5, this one had shot back to grab 6, so that's 2 points scored plus the D3 for overwhelming firepower. That's a 4, so that's another 2 points. So that's given me some solid points and the guarantee of 2 flyers turning up next turn, so I might finally start to deal with these Flyrants. Anyway, let's see what the Nids can do without their Tervigon on turn 3. So the Tyranids continue their surge forward despite the casualties. Flyrants did kind of a crossover to keep themselves on the table and down this end of the board. And everything else pretty much surged forward. Even the Biovores are coming forward to me. The Gaunts went up over the hill, Warriors starting to move out of the cover. In the Psychic phase, they tried to cast the Horror at my Incubi, but it was dispelled. And then this one tried to put Catalyst on himself, but failed, unfortunately. So no 5-up for him today. He was jinking last turn, so his Snapfires didn't do too much to the Venom, although I didn't even actually risk jinking with that, but the second one did the job and completely wrecked the Venom despite my jinking. That did mean he left my Flyer alone, but that did mean the Rippers could grab this objective, which was one of his. His other objective was Objective 5 here. No, Objective 3, sorry, which the Biovores claimed. He's also now contesting 5 by pushing those guys forward. Shooting from the DAC effects wiped out my Scourges. They came in, killed one model, and then got wrecked. And these Gaunts and the Tyranid Warriors fired at this Venom, which had already lost a hull point, forced it to jink but didn't do any further damage. And fire from the Termagants made this one jink, because I really need them to stay alive. So 2 of my Venoms are now jinking and one's wrecked. Biovores fired for the Incubi but scattered wildly, landed over here and actually ended up killing a Termagant. So Biovores not had the greatest of games. But yeah, he scored 2 points off me, but the damage wasn't as bad as it could have been. I've got 2 Venoms jinking and 1 wrecked, but my Incubi might actually get into combat next turn. Also, I've got all my reserves turning up. Here we go with Dark Eldar, turn 3. I mean turn 4. So got a nice little cluster of objectives here, 6, 3 and 5. So objective 5 was going to be the hardest one to get because I needed to get a unit to it and blow the Termagants off, so moved this up a little bit and was able to kill just 1 Termagant with a Snapfire, which was just enough. We measured that distance there and it's about 3.001, so he has just scored that. Over here, the 2 flyers that were in reserves came on, and as you can see, I finally managed to wipe out that Flyrant. Although those 2 flyers didn't do it alone, they needed the support fire of this here Venom to finish that off. But yay, that's Warlord as well, because that one was the Warlord. Other than that, the Ravager took just a single wound off the Carnifexes. I can't wait till Bright Lances and Dark Lances do multiple wounds. And to grab Objective 6, I turbo boosted this Venom, which had jinked last turn, to grab that. In combat, my Incubi finally made it in and easily cut down those Gaunts and are now facing off against the Warriors. Interesting to see how that goes down next turn. So, Objective 3 was protected by the Biovores, so that one isn't being scored, and I'm going to discard Hold the Line, but I got Secure 5 and 6 for another 2 points. Actually, I've got the Warlord trait that allows me to discard 2, so I'm going to discard both of those, get a new set next turn. But we've got a an okay lead now, and we're one flyrant down, but there's still some nasty bugs on the board, so let's see what Mike can do to me in Tyranid turn 4. Tyranids clawed back some ground here with some quite impressive kills this turn. The one surviving Hive Tyrant doubled back on himself and then unloaded his twin-linked pair of Devourers into the Razorwing. That caused the Razorwing to crash, and it landed right on top of the Venom, which blew that up. And somehow, despite the crash being enough to kill the Venom, the resulting explosion didn't kill that Termagant. So, fair enough. Carnifex is advanced through the woods and shot for these guys here, but only managed to kill 2 of them. And then their attempted charge failed. The Tyranid warriors fired at this Venom, wrecked it. These guys got out and then suffered 3 casualties to the Biovores. These Termagants actually fell back because they were out of Synapse range, and the Rippers are line breaking and grabbing that objective, so I'm going to need to deal with them before the end of the game. Points wise, he grabbed Recon and one other, which was objective 3, which was back here where his whole army is. Psychic phase, he had cast the Horror on these guys, but we then realised that didn't actually matter because they gained Fearless at the start of turn 5 anyway, so automatically recover from pinning. So I think I've still got a slender lead here, but he had creeped back some points that turn. But let's see what we can do on the 5th turn. So lots of objectives to do this turn, but most of them going to be very difficult. I'm lacking the models for Supremacy and Domination. I don't have a Psyker, and the only character on the board is a Flying Hive Tyrant, so it's really only secure objective 5. So I turbo boosted my Ravager. No, I didn't. I just moved it up. I didn't turbo boost it. And then the crew of this Venom finished off the one Gaunt that was hiding in there, so that got me that. Unfortunately, my 2 flyers were out of position to get a line of sight on his flyer, so instead the Void Raven came over here, bombed the Carnifex to do a wound, and then failed to do any significant damage to the... Oh no, killed one Tyranid warrior. The Razorwing fired at the Carnifexes and completely failed to do anything, but the Ravager had a better time, finished off one of them, so there's only 1 Carnifex left there. This Venom shot for the Rippers down here, but only did a single wound, although they are now out of Synapse, so they might have trouble in future turns. However, if I had killed them, I would have denied him that objective and might have been able to do Supremacy. In the combat phase, my Archon made combat with the Incubi at the Tyranid warriors and killed one more and did another wound, leaving just 1 lone warrior who killed 1 Incubi in return. We're both holding because we're both fearless. So, only 1 point scored this turn, but we are pushing on, and be very interesting to see what goes down in Mike's 5th turn. So with the number of models on the table vastly reducing, the Tyranid turn was somewhat short and sweet. The Hive Tyrant continued coming over here and used its heavy Devourer thingies to blow up the Ravager, so ouch. He then tried to target the Void Raven with the Gaunts. I jinked because they could have stripped the last hull point, but it survived. They didn't manage to do any damage. Biovores fired at these guys, but it's the Trueborn, but it scattered off the table. But the Carnifex made a charge in here and killed the Incubi. Now the Archon did kill the Tyranid warrior, and she passed her save from the Carnifex's attacks. But Incubi are dead, so that scored in Blood and Guts. He also had Secure 3 and Harness the Warp, which he did by casting Dominion. So, counting the points up there, it is 13 points to the Dark Eldar and 11 to the Tyranids. So at the end of turn 5 the game could be ending. So we're going to roll for that now. It's a 3, 1 more turn, here we go. Okay, so flew both my flyers off this turn because there wasn't really anything they could do, and one of them had jinked anyway. This Venom came over here to grab objective 4, which is one that I needed. And also fired at the Hive Tyrant, did 2 wounds, and he failed his grounding test, so he's now on the ground, but I didn't have anything to capitalise on by assaulting him. but the Archon did manage to win the combat against the Carnifex. So yay, Carnifex is dead, Archon's still fine. Only scored a single point that turn for secure objective 4. Should have got 6, but was a bit stupid with my move and it wasn't quite close enough. So oops, that was my bad. If I lose this by a single point, I am an idiot. So just the 1 point this turn, and we go into the Tyranid 6th turn. So the big scorers this turn were these two Rippers. Secured objective 2 and got him behind enemy lines. So that was the 2 Tyranid points, which bring him within a point of the Dark Eldar. Other than that, he was trying to kill my Warlord because he had Kingslayer. Flyrant shot her, and she managed to pass all her saves. Gaunt shot her, did a single wound, shorted out her shadow field, then did another wound to her in combat for 3 casualties in return. So things are finally poised now. I am a single point ahead, and the game carries on a 4+. Mike, do the honours. It's a 1. Game is over. Could not have been closer. Thanks a lot, mate. Good game. Yep. Catch you guys in a second for the post game. So when the game ended, it looked like I'd won by a single point, but then we realised line breaker. And when we measured it out, saw that none of my units were within 12 of his table edge, but the Rippers, that damn Ripper swarm, was right on the bubble for being inside my 12-inch deployment. So yeah, they got a line breaker, and that pulled it back to a draw. So yeah, nice one, Mike. You basically got me with Rippers in the end. Those Rippers scored you so many points in that game, and yeah, you don't think about Rippers being a particular threat. You know, you've got Carnifexes, Hive Tyrants, Tyranid Warriors running around the board, focusing me fire on them, ignored the little Rippers, and they racked him up loads of points and managed to hold me to a draw. So nice one, well played. Couple of factors I think were interesting in that game. My flyers really didn't do as much as I would have hoped they would have done. Particularly the lance weapons on there, the Dark Lances and the Void Lances, just weren't making enough of an impact to justify their points. And that's when the flyers eventually turned up. You know, I don't want to completely blame dice for why I lost it, but you know, if your flyers aren't turning up till the 4th turn in some cases, then yeah, that's not going to work. And Mike's list, although with not so many little gribblies as you sometimes get in mid lists, looked like it could have been a little bit easier to take down. The Carnifexes actually gave me some trouble. Not once my Archon got into combat with them, mind, but yeah, they were pretty well protected from shooting, and I liked what you did with the 3 Venom Thrups. Also, having 3 Venom Thrups is going to help you going forward, because from what I've heard, they now have to be taken in units of 3 in the new edition. So yeah. So that's going to be the last game of the Tale of 4 Gamers. So in a second we'll take a look at the scores and see how it goes. But first, just want to thank all the guys for letting me film these. We've had some great games. It's been good fun, and ultimately we've all got out of this what we wanted, which was some good fun games, and we've all got new armies as well. So that is it for 7th edition. But stay tuned, because we will have some 8th edition battles up for you very, very soon. Anyway, on to the scores. So heading into this final round of games, Sam was only 5 points ahead of me in the league. So let's take a close look at the scores and see what we all got. Starting off with Mike's Tyranids, quite straightforward. 2 new units added, the extra Daka Carnifex and the Termagants, and a draw in the game for 2 points, giving him a month total of 7. Rob likewise added 2 new units at level 2, but losing the game to Sam meant he got 6 points this month. Now Sam's Iron Warriors, only 2 units added, both at level 2, but he did pick up a win in the game, giving him 8 points. And I got the highest painting score this month with 3 new units added, including 2 at level 3. Alas, only a draw in the game, but that did give me 11 points, making me the highest scoring player this month. But it wasn't quite enough to take the lead from Sam. He ends up beating me by just 2 points, 69 points to 67, with Mike and Rob a little bit further down. but I think that doesn't sort of really represent how much effort we've gone into the armies and playing the games. I know Rob had a really good run of wins, and Mike's painted probably the most individual models with all those termagants he's added. So yeah, all four of us have, like I said earlier, got what we really wanted out of this, which is some fun games, and we've all got new armies as we head into the new edition. So congratulations to Sam. You certainly deserve the win. You won a good number of your games, and you certainly added the most number of units to your army. So yeah, well done. Anyway, thanks a lot to all you guys for watching and coming with us on this journey of the Tale of 4Gamers. Yeah, look forward to loads more content as we head into 8th edition. Chances are we will probably do some kind of retrospective on this, maybe sort of 4-6 months down the line, maybe sooner, depending on how quickly we can get everyone together, see how our new armies are performing in 8th edition. And who knows, maybe one day we'll run another one of these. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.